I'm quoting him, single action. With that said, I think we will be waiting for more comprehensive actions from the resistance front in these hours down the road.
Okay, Tawhid Asadi, thank you very much for all of that you're bringing us from Iran. So the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, said just moments ago, confirming they launched at least 250 missiles towards Israel. They warned that if Israel retaliated to that attack, then Tehran's response would be, quote, more crushing and ruinous. They also said that this was the response to Israel's assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the then leader of Hamas, in Tehran. That was late July, and the response to Israel's assassination of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah. That was just on Friday.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
You, just you, building your app on Base 44.
Well, we are continuing our special coverage of the hostilities between Israel and Iran. There's been no let-up in the exchange of strikes as the death toll continues to climb. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is urging his country to unite as Israeli attacks cause extensive damage in major cities. At least 224 people have now been killed in Iran since Friday.
We are not the aggressors, yet we made it clear that we are required than any time before to stand together, stand united. All our countrymen must join hands, stand together, hand in hand, in the face of this ruthless belligerence.
Well, at least 20 people have been killed in Israel since Friday. The latest wave of Iranian attacks targeted the major cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa. Suburbs and towns around Tel Aviv were also hit in the attack. In Bnei Brak, residential buildings and cars, as you can see there, were damaged, as well as a synagogue. Israel's defense minister said Tehran residents, quote, would pay the price soon. And the U.S. Embassy branch office in Tel Aviv was closed on Monday after overnight attacks. It sustained what the ambassador described as minor damage. He said no U.S. personnel were harmed. Well, here's a report now from Osama bin Javed with a recap of all the latest exchanges of attacks.
Another strike in Haifa. Iranian missiles hit near the city's energy plant. Israel's main port city is being targeted by Iran after Israel attacked Iranian oil facilities. Air defense systems in Tel Aviv were triggered early on Monday morning to intercept Iranian missiles. Air raid sirens were activated in cities across Israel, and people were told to take shelter. Multiple buildings have been destroyed as Israel's advanced air defenses were unable to block all missiles. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it's using new methods in this latest wave, which disrupted Israel's defense systems and caused them to target each other. Iranian targets included Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's residence and military sites. Israel Electric Corporation says it's working to restore electricity supply after damage to the grid in central Israel.
The government has not been able to speak clearly about such an off-ramp or about an exit strategy or about an endgame. Many options have been floated, from regime change to slowing down the nuclear program. So a lot of Israelis are more cheerful than they've been in a while, especially after the debacle of Gaza.
The Iranian missile volleys came in response to Israeli missiles that were launched at Iran in the early hours. Air defense systems in Tehran were activated. Israeli attacks have killed at least 228 Iranians and injured more than 1,200 others. Iran says Israel is killing civilians, including 70 women and children. The entire country is under attack. Israel's Air Force has claimed to have struck Mashhad Airport about 2,300 kilometers from Israel, making it the longest reach of Israeli attacks since Friday. Israeli strikes have targeted Iranian nuclear and missile facilities and assassinated military commanders and scientists. In the last 24 hours, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' intelligence chief Mohammad Kazemi and his deputy Hassan Muhaqqiq were killed. Iran's foreign ministry building in Tehran was also hit. Flights are suspended across Iran. President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned Tehran's response will be more decisive and severe if Israel's hostile actions continue.
they have already passed all the red lines. And when they pass these red lines, Iran needs to take serious actions against that. The same model that was happening in Gaza and in Lebanon is being repeated by the Israelis here.
Israel triggered the crisis with its surprise attack on Friday. Iran says the aggression proves Israel does not abide by any humanitarian, legal, or international rules. And as the back and forth strikes continue, more civilians are dying on both sides. Osama bin Javid, Al Jazeera.
Our correspondents are following all of the latest developments in this escalating conflict. In a moment, we'll be speaking to Noor O'Day in the Jordanian capital, Amman. But first, let's speak to Tawhid Asadi. He's in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Tawhid, Israel, I see, is now saying they've destroyed more than a third of Iran's surface-to-surface missile launches. They say they've achieved aerial superiority over Iran. Can you give us a sense of the situation on the ground there at the moment and perhaps the level of destruction of the targets that they've been aiming for?
Well, here in the capital, we see time and again the sounds related to the activation of the air defense system of the country. And here in the capital, we hear these sounds of explosion related to the interception of flying objects from time to time. And this is the day 4 of from the initiation of the Israeli strikes that covered an extensive range of targets, including military and nuclear facilities across the country, but that's not just it. We had reports about civilian casualties in this regard, and we heard from the spokesperson of the government, Fatima Mohajerani, just a few seconds ago saying that this is a war that has been imposed to us, and he asked for the solidarity among the people. But speaking of the casualties, speaking of the damages, we heard this report from Kermanshah city saying that one hospital named Farabi was attacked. Footages are coming out showing that the situation there is not really good, and that means that there are more and more civilian casualties with respect to the Israeli strikes. Here in the capital, earlier in the morning, we saw smoke coming out from one of the scenes that one of these strikes happened just today, but that's not it. Israelis have actually targeted different locations across the city, and at the same time we received reports from the state TV saying that the air defense system in the capital is active and it's intercepting different flying objects.
Tawhid Asadi there with the very latest for us from the Iranian capital, Tehran. Thank you very much, Tawhid. Well, let's turn to Noor O'Day in the Jordanian capital, Amman. She's reporting from there because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting inside Israel and the occupied West Bank. Noor, what exactly has Iran been targeting there? We've been hearing military sites, but also civilian areas.
TradingView celebrates 15 years and unlocks a 1-year premium plan as your personal gift. A powerful platform.
Yes, I mean, both things are true. In Tel Aviv, in particular, remember on Friday, for example, the first day after the Israeli strikes on Iran, we saw strikes at the heart of Tel Aviv. Well, in that area, the Ministry of Defense and several security headquarters are also housed, and so there are neighborhoods in Tel Aviv and Tel Aviv district that are being quite heavily targeted. We're also seeing the targeting of Haifa, a very strategic city, a very strategic port in Israel, home to the Israeli Navy, but also home to the depots of petrochemicals, of the pipelines of gas, of an important part of the power grid in Israel. So all of those are sensitive areas. Now, the information we get is either provided by eyewitnesses who publish videos of the fires that ensue, of the missiles that fall, or the images that are cleared by the military sensor. And usually the most we can get if military targets are actually struck is a mention of sensitive areas, but there is no way for us to gauge that or get more specific information on that because no information is forthcoming. It's actually illegal to break the military censor orders.
Of course. Well, obviously Israel has air defenses that it's been very, very proud of. Some of these missiles, though, are obviously making it past the Iron Dome defense system. What do recovery efforts look like on the ground in Tel Aviv at the moment? Are people still being told to head to shelters, for instance?
Well, they're usually given up to 15 minutes of advanced warning. Right now, there are no warnings in place. The recovery efforts and the clearing of debris and looking for people under the rubble is a painstaking and long process. Yesterday, on Sunday, we saw that process in Bat Yam taking many hours, going into the evening hours and even in the morning hours to recover the bodies of those who were trapped under the rubble. The same applies today. We've seen buildings hit quite heavily in Beni Brak and other districts of the larger Tel Aviv area. The recovery efforts continue, and that's why the number of casualties are rising, surpassing 20 since.
Noor O'Day, they're reporting for us from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Thank you very much, Noor. Well, let's bring in Satara Sadeghi. She's a researcher at the University of Tehran. She joins us now from Isfahan in Iran. Satara, I know you've been speaking of strengthened unity in Iran. Many view this as an existential conflict for Iran, certainly for the current regime. How much support does the regime have at the moment and for its chosen response so far?
The Islamic Republic, which is the legitimate establishment ruling over Iran, voted by people and supported by the people, even though it has gone through problems or grievances from the people, it's still enjoying legitimacy and popularity among its population. I know you like to use imperialist narrative to try to describe the country as the regime with a legitimacy crisis, but Iran is a 19 million country. It's with almost a homogeneous population. It's not like, for example, Israel, where people have been moved from from different races and nationalities and brought there, where people also, when you steal lands from other people, you have to have bunkers and shelters because they might come back and want to get back their lands from you. Iran does not have those problems, but Iran also does not have shelters under all these buildings. So when Israel starts attacking, the civilian casualties are very high. Israel is on purpose attacking civilians. The Israeli the so-called Minister of Defense, which I would call the Minister of Genocide, has warned Tehran residents, 14 million Iranians in Tehran, that they will have to pay a price. These aggressions, these rhetoric, these threatenings unifies people inside Iran, because Israel is not attacking the Islamic Republic. Israel is attacking Iran, and nation with 90 million people, with thousands of years of history, with a population that may disagree on economic practices, on foreign policy, but when it comes to the integrity and sovereignty of their nation, they agree on protecting it. You hear people that might not even be pro-government wanting to volunteer to, in any way possible that they can, to protect their government from foreign aggression. We're dealing with a regime that has been killing hundreds of thousands of children, women, defenseless, innocent civilians in Palestine, in Lebanon, and elsewhere. And now Iranians are proud that their country has been finally responding and retaliating these aggressions and showing the Israeli regime that it can defend itself. And unlike Israel, there is a population here that belongs to this land, that feels that this is their land and they have to protect it. It's not like Israelis with dual citizenships that want to flee the country and find shelter outside the country.
Satara, I'm curious about how Iranians view the motives of Israel here. Israel saying that it's about the nuclear program. Do Iranians buy that? Does the Iranian public think that this is about the nuclear program, or do they think it's about trying to effect regime change?
No, I don't think, I mean, the majority of Iranians do not buy that it's about the nuclear program. Israel admitting that they have not been able to significantly harm nuclear facilities. They killed nuclear scientists not when they were working in nuclear facilities, but when they were in their houses with their families in the residential areas. And they have been killing civilians. Why would Israel bomb or target a hospital in the west of Iran where which has nothing to do with nuclear activities, or horses, or universities, or I don't know, like residential areas, if it was about nuclear program. Israel has been saying, and its allies in the U.S., in IAEA, the International Atomic Agency, have been saying since 2015 that Iran is 1 month away from developing a nuclear bomb. And it's a ludicrous joke that a country with the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons and with the highest record of war crimes and while at the same time carrying a genocide and a massacre of people in Palestine, in Lebanon, and Iran, claims that it's concerned about another independent country developing nuclear weapons, a country that has opened its nuclear facilities to international inspectors. Remember that during Obama bragged about how it's imposed the most severe inspection regime on any nuclear facilities in any country in the world. And Iran welcomed that because they wanted to show the world that we were not seeking nuclear weapons. So any comments coming from a country with the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons while carrying a genocide is, I think, it's baseless and ludicrous, and Iranians do not buy that. That just seems like a joke, and there's really warned Tehranians to leave the city or to be aware that they have to pay a price. So it's about killing civilians, it's about killing people and Iranians. It has nothing to do with the nuclear program.
Satara Sadeghi there, researcher at the University of Tehran, speaking to us from Isfahan. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Satara. I now want to bring in Yossi Beilin. He's a former Israeli Minister of Justice. He's joining us now from Tel Aviv. Mr. Beilin, let me just start with what's happening on the ground and how people are perceiving that. There's been this ongoing barrage. What does the Israeli public think of the choice to initially launch these attacks on Iran right now?
You download our open source software, install it on your PC, and you...
Well, I did not try to have a public opinion poll, so you are asking me something that I don't have an exact answer. I did not see any public opinion poll since the beginning of the war. My feeling is that the general public opinion is very supportive on of the war, knowing that it has to pay a price for it, for sure. But the point is that that Iran is the only country in the world which is preaching for wiping out Israel out of the map. And Israel, after all, is another member of the UN. And if such a country which demands the disappearance of Israel is going to have nuclear weapons, it is a real danger, because if it is espoused to the policy, then Israel is in a big problem. And this is why this war is justified by many Israelis. They know that if the United States is not part of it, there won't be a full answer to the issue of the nuclear weapons in Iran, but maybe we can defer the developing of such weapons in months or few years, but it is more it is better than having such a situation tomorrow. So the support is there. There is always criticism. Unlike Iran, Israel is a democratic country, and there are those who oppose it, those who support it. but the general feeling, if I may say so, not in a scientific way, is very supportive.
How much influence does the U.S. wield right now in Israel on this particular conflict? President Trump seems to think that there's still hope for diplomacy, but in his initial statements that he was viewing Israel's strikes as leverage for talks. As a former negotiator yourself, how would you advise him?
I would advise President Trump, if I may, to look at what happened in October 91, when President Bush invited the Middle Eastern countries and others to the Madrid conference. And this conference created a situation whereby there were bilateral talks between Israel and the Palestinians and Jordanians, Israel, Syria, Israel and Lebanon. And eventually, the two major developments out of Madrid then was the Oslo Agreement and peace between Israel and Jordan. I think that that 99, which was the end of the Cold War, the situation in which Saddam Hussein became a pariah, and there was a new president in the United States, President Clinton, who wanted to have achievements in the international arena. That was the right moment to have such a very important and a real milestone in Madrid. And I think that if today such a Madrid II conference is reconvened by the Americans and others, then we can really deal with the issue of ending the war in Gaza, freeing the hostages, resuming the talks between Israel and Lebanon, because there is another kind of government in Lebanon which is ready, apparently, to have an agreement with Israel, to have talks with other Arab countries towards peace, including Syria, if possible, and really to change the Middle East. Now, the issue between Iran and Israel may perhaps be solved not in such a conference, because Iran will not participate in a conference with Israel, but in the sideline of such a conference, in the bilateral talks between the United States and Iran. Eventually, there is no real reason why Israel and Iran cannot have agreements and peace between them. They were in peace. They had diplomatic relations in the past. We are not real enemies. We don't have any issues between us. And if they forget about eradicating Israel, I think that we can seriously talk.
So, Mr. Yossi Beilin, there, former Israeli Minister of Justice, advocating for a more holistic approach to regional diplomacy right now. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much, Mr. Beilin.
Thank you very much.
Well, the UN's nuclear watchdog, in the meantime, is holding an urgent meeting in Vienna. The International Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors has been coming together at the request of Russia. It's concerned about these Israeli attacks against several Iranian nuclear facilities, like the Natanz site. The head of the agency says there's no sign of further damage in Natanz. Well, let's bring in Rory Challens. He joins me from Vienna. So, Rory, presumably some pretty large sighs of relief over there about the damage that's been done so far.
Yeah, we had the state of play given as the meeting here started from Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA. He basically brought everyone up to speed, the state of play as far as the IAEA understands it at Iran's nuclear facilities. Natanz, he said, which was attacked on Friday, several buildings destroyed on the surface level, but no indication of any destruction underneath the ground, which is where the main cascade hall is. Off-site radiation levels appear to be normal, according to the IAEA, but they are saying that underneath, in the chambers and halls of the facility, they expect there is some kind of radiological and chemical contamination in the form of vapors or gases, basically the kind of stuff that you really don't want to breathe in. But as Grossi said, if you have the appropriate safety measures, breathing apparatus, then it is manageable. There is also an assessment of what's been going on at Isfahan, which was also attacked on Friday. 4 buildings damaged on the surface level, but as at Natanz, no increase in radiation levels off-site. Fordow apparently has not been attacked yet. But Grossi was saying that these shouldn't be attacked at all. The main or one of the main core responsibilities of the IAEA is to safeguard nuclear security. And if you have nuclear facilities that are having bombs falling on them, that is a massive compromise, obviously, of nuclear security. He says that he's ready to travel at a moment's notice to be on hand if necessary, and that the inspectors that have been on the ground in Iran obviously can't do their work right now, but they are ready to go back when the safety situation allows. We can hear a little bit more about what Grossi said earlier just now.
Military escalation threatens lives, increases the chance of a radiological release with serious consequences for people and the environment, and delays indispensable work towards a diplomatic solution for the long-term assurance that Iran does not acquire nuclear weapons. Consistent.
Powerful blasts have echoed across Dubai, sending shockwaves through the city after residents received urgent warnings of potential missile threats. Mobile alerts instructed people to immediately seek shelter as panic spread and uncertainty gripped the skyline. At the same time, in Doha, multiple explosions were heard as air defense systems sprang into action. Qatar's Ministry of Defense confirmed that its armed forces successfully intercepted a missile targeting the country. The interception came just hours after similar alerts warned residents of imminent danger, underscoring the scale and coordination of the threat. In Saudi Arabia, authorities reported that several unmanned aerial vehicles were detected and neutralized in the eastern region. Officials confirmed that air defense units engaged and destroyed the drones before they could cause any damage. This followed an earlier operation in which Saudi forces intercepted and eliminated 6 drones in the same area. The pattern is unmistakable. Multiple countries, multiple attacks, and a rapidly widening theater of conflict. Amid these developments, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, has claimed responsibility for a major escalation. The IRGC announced what it calls the 57th wave of Operation True Promise 4, describing it as a coordinated assault on strategic targets. According to the statement, Iranian forces launched a combination of advanced missile systems and explosive drones. These included Haibar Shakan, Ahmad, and Qadr missiles, reportedly striking command and control infrastructure deep inside contested territories. The IRGC claims these strikes disrupted critical military networks and weakened defense systems. Simultaneously, the group says it targeted Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a key hub for U.S. Central Command.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for joining us on War with Iran, which has now entered its third week. Tonight, President Trump is demanding America's NATO allies, along with Japan and China, help the U.S. secure the Strait of Hormuz by escorting oil tankers through the waterway shut down by Iran. 20% of the world's oil supply passes through the strait, and right now the president is frustrated. No one has publicly come forward. Germany says this is not NATO's war. And late today, video circulating online shows an Iranian drone hitting a hotel in Baghdad, flames shooting out of the windows. ABC's chief international correspondent James Longman reports from the region tonight.
Iran still causing chaos across the region tonight. A massive explosion as a drone slammed into this hotel in Baghdad. Flames shooting out of the building. Video circulating online. And near the U.S. embassy, video showing the moment air defense systems shot down a rocket flying nearby. Tonight, President Trump is blasting some key U.S. allies for refusing to answer his new call for help in reopening the critical Strait of Hormuz. That's more than 2 weeks after he launched the war in Iran without those allies.
We don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest military by far in the world. We don't need them.
Late today, the president claimed the UK was unwilling to help in the beginning.
I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do it. We've been with you.
President Trump said today the UK is now offering aircraft carriers, but that he told them it's too late.
He said, we're going to send over 2 aircraft carriers. I said, I don't want them anymore. I don't want them after we win. I want them before we start. I don't need your aircraft carriers after we've already won.
Tonight, the British Prime Minister says the concern is a wider war.
We will not be drawn into the wider war.
And tonight, Germany is refusing to send help for the Strait of Hormuz, saying, quote, it's not our war.
We can't be at every place to support a war which we didn't start it.
While questioning the loyalty of some allies, late today, the president marveled in the Oval Office at his model of an American B-2 bomber.
And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over there. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. Because it's the only plane capable of carrying a 200,000-pound bomb. So I don't know how they do it, because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs.
20% of the world's oil flows through the strait. The danger of Iranian attacks keeping most from getting through. Global oil prices are hovering around $100 a barrel today. Gas prices in the U.S. have risen more than 80 cents since the start of the war. And tonight, the president says some countries are sending help, but he wouldn't say who.
Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't.
The president says the U.S. has struck 7,000 targets so far in Iran and destroyed 100 Iranian naval ships, including all 30 vessels that lay underwater mines. The president is tonight saying he's not sure who is leading Iran, saying he doesn't know if the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is alive or dead, and of other potential leaders.
Now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to, because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead.
And tonight, the Pentagon is revealing 200 American troops have been wounded so far in this war, at least 13 U.S. service members killed. And tonight, tributes for the 6 American service members who died when their refueling plane crashed in western Iraq. The youngest, 28-year-old technical sergeant Tyler Simmons of Columbus, Ohio, seen here just months ago training on the same type of aircraft that went down, a KC-135. His mother says she spoke to her son the day before he died.
We actually had beautiful conversation. I was like, well, Tyler, how are you? He said, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. He just wanted to do amazing things because he's an amazing man.
33-year-old Major John Alex Klinner from Auburn, Alabama, had just been promoted. The married father of 3 had 7-month-old twins. 31-year-old Captain Ariana Savino of Covington, Washington. 34-year-old Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt of Bardstown, Kentucky, remembered as a devout wife and mother, leaving a 3-year-old daughter. 30-year-old Captain Curtis Angst of Wilmington, Ohio, and 38-year-old Captain Seth Coville of Mooresville, Indiana. Coville's wife tonight saying he was exceptional in everything he did. And back in the Oval Office late today, President Trump made news when he suggested a former president he's been speaking with wishes he had done to Iran what Trump has done.
And he said, I wish I did what you did. Could have done it. Other presidents, somebody should have done it. 47 years this went on.
What if your family had a secure base in Europe, a place to anchor your future beyond today's uncertainty?
James, thank you. Israel carried out widespread airstrikes across Lebanon since fighting escalated earlier this month, hitting targets in Beirut, the south, and Hezbollah strongholds. Lebanon's health ministry says more than 200 people have been killed and hundreds wounded since the latest round of attacks began, with humanitarian groups warning that hundreds of thousands of people have been forced from their homes. The team leader for Mercy Corps Lebanon Crisis Analysis Team spoke with ABC News Live anchor Diane Macedo today. Take a listen.
What are you seeing in Beirut, and what kind of work are you doing there right now?
So currently we have around 830,000 people displaced in Lebanon, around 300,000 of which are children. Currently we have 630 collective shelters in Lebanon housing around 15% of the total displaced people. And these collective shelters are public schools, so this is putting additional pressure on our educational sector. We've got thousands of people laying on the streets and setting up tents on the streets and across the shore in Lebanon. And the weather has been extremely harsh the last 2 days, so most of these displaced people were soaking in the rain. Also, a lot of the other displaced are currently trying to rent places all across Lebanon to seek refuge, but if, and as it seems that the war will prolong and escalate, these people's abilities to pay rent will be exacerbated. From our side as Mercy Corps, we are doing all we could to respond to the situation. We are distributing food items, hot and cold meals, and also core relief items such as blankets and so on. We also foresee the crisis being prolonged, and unfortunately with the disruption of trade and also the increase in fuel prices, Lebanon will see its food and fuel prices increasing, which will add additional burden on the households, especially the most needy.
What's your biggest concern now that Israel's launching ground operations?
Our biggest concern now is that we expect more and more displaced people to take place, and it's a complete humanitarian catastrophe, especially with the recent cut of funding that Lebanon has received, and it has exacerbated our ability to respond properly. So we do call for further support for Lebanon in order for us to be able to respond. And also there is the targeting of health facilities, and more than 30 people, health workers, have been killed since the 2 weeks. So we're also heading into a bit of a health crisis, along with a livelihood crisis, with people losing their abilities to work.
Israel has issued evacuation orders and dropped leaflets ahead of strikes. Are civilians getting those warnings?
Civilians are getting those warnings, but the warnings of evacuation are extending massively. So we have had all the suburbs of Beirut and all the south being had evacuation orders. So we're talking about around 30% of the country. So in general, even if these evacuation orders are in place, the people have nowhere to go. So it's a humanitarian catastrophe.
France is trying to arrange direct talks between Israel and Lebanon. What's your message to officials on both sides?
We are a humanitarian organization, and from our perspective, we hope that this war will end as soon as possible.
Our thanks to Diane and the team for that. Coming up, Marcus Moore reports from Qatar and gives us a deep dive on the dire straits of the global conflict surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. French President Emmanuel Macron says freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz must be restored as quickly as possible. But how exactly would that be done? Our Diane Macedo with the French ambassador for international investments.
So President Trump says he's asked about 7 countries now to join a coalition to police the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think France will be part of that coalition?
You know, this is not my remit to basically answer to such a question. I will leave that to President Macron. But what is clear is that France has been pretty prompt at sending an aircraft carriers in the regions, right? The infamous Charles de Gaulle, while we also be displacing a frigate. So we've been doing our duty. As we continue to rearm, to basically work on submarine missiles, we're also remember the second largest exporter of defense equipments all in all. So we're very concerned by what's happening out there. I will do like we've been always doing after 250 years of alliances with the U.S. Since your 1776 declaration. We've been very close. So that's all what I can say in my duty as ambassador for international investment, Diane.
Macron has talked about potentially escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz once the more intense parts of this conflict have passed. What do you think needs to happen in order for that to be a thing?
Again, I'm not as such a diplomat. I'm not as such in charge of any matters in this respect. But let me tell you, the philosophy is that we're not basically in a proactive role into that war. We basically we'll do whatever it takes to basically fight against Iranians where as long as our residents and our business are concerned. But the hard fact is that right now we're deployed in the areas. That's these aircraft carriers which has been doing it. So all that's what I can answer to you as an answer right now. Right now, the focus is really going back to a peace. Hence the reasons why President Macron, with our 2 close countries, both Israel and Lebanon, has been inviting everyone to come in Paris to discuss that matters. That's the role that France has been doing historically, which continues to be very strong. And we put also our air flight carriers out there because we want to basically to support our allies, the Gulf countries with whom we have defense agreements, which has been buying many of our equipment. So we do the duty that we need in such circumstances.
President Trump has said if NATO doesn't help secure the Strait of Hormuz, it would be very bad for the alliance. What's your response to that?
I think he has a point, the same point that he mentions when it was about increasing our defense budgets. But if there is one country which had a very strong defense budget over the last 80 years, it's been France. We basically had the nuclear dissuasions. We've got also civil nuclears. So we've been doing our share of the job all in all together, right? So I'm not sure I give you a proper answer to that. But I think in that we want to have the District of the Strait of Hormuz to basically in peace. We deployed our army out there. We are supporting our allies, which are basically living on that side of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what I can tell you.
The U.S. and NATO were already at odds going into this over President Trump's aspirations to take over NATO and over tariffs. How do you see this crisis now impacting relations between France and the U.S. and in general, NATO relations?
We are at odds for 1 or 2 years because essentially we lost the dividend of the peace word. We have been changing the multilateral rulings, and we believe that we can rule the world with a very ethnocentric views. That's what in Europe we've been fighting against in all circumstances. That's why President Macron has been loud and explaining that we need to continue to go back through the G7s and the multilateral agreements to something which is more balanced. That's why also, if we took the hit of the Turnberry Agreement, the 15% tariffs, we've been making a life out of this. But we need to remember that up to 800,000 American citizens are working for French company, like 500,000 French citizens are working for American company, that you represent 20% of our foreign investment, and that France has been welcoming investment for essentially 6 decades in a row by having the #1 positions. So we need to go back to the basics of a reasonable, balanced view of the world, which is not exactly what's happening right now. And for that, we're trying to basically behave as the means that we have, Europe, France, which has very unique technology, is able to do it. But clearly, the situation is not easy. But we stand in our feet and we continue to welcome both this trade agreement, this multilateralism, which is so important for peace.
The troubled waters of the Strait of Hormuz have quickly shifted much of the world's focus. It's considered a major oil choke point, and while some Asian nations are most reliant on it, the U.S. might feel a slow drip impact. Our Marcus Moore has this story for us tonight. Once again, our thanks to Diane. Coming up, trying to get gassed up in this economy? We tell you what to expect when it comes to the cost of fuel after the break.
Iran policies.
Well, look, Andrew, we went into this war thinking that the Iranian regime was on the ropes, that by decapitating it politically, by going after the top brass of its military, by degrading its military installations, we would be able to bring it down relatively quickly at little cost to our own troops and to the global economy. And now, 16 days into this, there is no light at the end of a tunnel. It's not clear how this could end in a way that the U.S. can basically declare victory. So far, we have only replaced one Khamenei with another Khamenei, and Iran can, at a game of endurance, win. It can't obviously outgun and outpower us, but it can definitely outlast us.
And what are some of your concerns about potential consequences across the region, particularly when it comes to nuclear material that may be unsecured inside Iran?
There is a long list of concerns. I mean, we are now still on an escalatory trajectory. If the U.S. at some point decides that it's going to go after Iranian energy infrastructure, I'm afraid the Iranians would torch the Gulf countries' energy infrastructure in retaliation, and that would push the price of oil about $200 a barrel, basically creating a global economic meltdown and a severe inflationary impact in the United States. If the country descends into chaos, by that I mean Iran, we don't know what's going to happen to almost half a ton of highly enriched uranium, which is sufficient for 10 nuclear warheads and dozens of dirty bombs. It would be a huge threat to international peace and security. So, we have got into this escalation trap without any idea of how to get out of it.
What about the Iranian people? What do they want in all of this?
Can't trust your AI results? Let Bullrium sift through 170 million.
Look, the Iranian people want to get rid of this regime, the majority of them. Some of them even wanted U.S. military intervention to help with that objective. But again, this is based on a lot of wishful thinking on the side of the U.S. and a lot of desperation on the side of the Iranian people. Because if we are to completely destroy the Revolutionary Guards, which is responsible for repression, just through the air, we're talking about more than 1 million men in arms. It would require destroying huge parts of the country. It would require killing hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians. And even then, the Iranian people would be unarmed, leaderless, and not in a position to be able to take over their own institutions. So this is simply a mirage.
Our thanks to Andrew and Ali for that conversation.
Hey, Lindsay, oil prices did come down a little bit today, but oil's still trading around $95 a barrel. Before the war started, we were closer to $65. So this has been a big increase in a short amount of time, and that has directly translated into higher prices at the pump. The national average for a gallon of regular gas is now up almost 80 cents since the start of the war. We're approaching $4 a gallon. Moody's Analytics crunched the numbers and said that if oil prices stay at this current level for a year, the typical American household will spend $1,036 extra because of these higher gas prices. Of course, that comes at a time when we've seen many households already paying more for other day-to-day essentials like groceries, childcare, rent, utilities. When you think about what this means for the broader economy, we're also closely tracking diesel prices, which are set to go above $5 on average across the U.S. That matters because companies are paying more to transport their goods. We are already seeing shipping companies like FedEx and UPS put shipping surcharges in place because of those higher diesel costs. Airfares are putting extra charges in place because of higher jet fuel costs. And the other big area to watch now in the next couple of weeks will be food, because grocers have to pay more to transport their products. Fertilizer costs are also going up. That could be an additional place where we see prices increase in the next couple of weeks. Lindsay.
And that is our show for this hour. I'm Lindsay Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.
It's day 17 of the war with Iran. The IDF says the campaign against the Islamic regime being carried out with the United States is moving faster than expected, but will still take about 3 weeks of attacks. In the past 24 hours, the IDF hit some 200 Western and Central Iranian military sites. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has the latest.
The IDF says Iran cannot currently produce new missiles after extensive strikes on its defense industry in central and western Iran, 200 in the past day alone. The IDF is preparing for at least 3 more weeks of operations, with thousands of additional targets still identified across Iran.
יש לנו תוכנית לחימה סדורה ומתוכננת היטב. יש לנו עוד אלפי מטרות באיראן, ואנחנו מייצרים מטרות נוספות מדי יום. המשטר כבר מוחלש, ואנחנו ממשיכים להחליש אותו יותר ויותר מדי יום.
The most recent targets included command centers that were manned by Iranian soldiers, air defense systems, and weapons storage and production sites. The IDF said it's expanding strikes across western and central Iran to systematically damage the regime's command and control capabilities. Footage released by the army shows UAV launch squads and missile teams fleeing struck sites, with Israeli aircraft tracking and eliminating the operatives in real time. The army says these operations are designed to reduce missile and drone fire toward Israel and continue non-stop to destroy the regime's ballistic missile and UAV infrastructure. The target of many strikes were command centers of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the besieged paramilitary force. Officials say they are seeing signs of declining morale among Iranian forces as the strikes continue. But the army also cautions it's not its role to bring regime change.
כצבא אין לנו מטרה להפיל משטר, אנחנו לא מפילים משטר, אנחנו כן יוצרים את התנאים ומערערים אותו, כדי שלאורך זמן העם האיראני ייקח את גורלו בידו, ויקח אליו חזרה את המדינה הזאת שנלקחה כבת ערובה בידי משטר הטרור הזה.
IDF strikes in Iran are now expected to continue for another 3 weeks. The job is to destroy the threat to Israel. It will be up to the Iranian people to rise up and rid themselves of their tyrannical regime.
And U.S. President Donald Trump is considering dramatic steps to break Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. He is demanding that other countries join the effort, especially his European partners.
President Trump is trying to build a multinational coalition to reopen the strategic waterway, which has been effectively closed by Iran, driving up global oil and gas prices.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete...
We are talking to other countries about working with us for the policing of the strait. And I think we're getting good response. If we do, that's great. And if we don't, that's great. We're demanding that
A more aggressive option, seizing Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal, which handles about 90% of the country's crude exports. A senior White House official says no final decision has been made, but warned that options could change if the blockade continues. Trump says that the U.S. is talking to Iran, but doubts Tehran is ready for negotiations.
they want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. I don't think they're ready. Just on what I'm hearing, they want to negotiate badly, as they should. But I don't think they're ready to do what they have to do. But I think they will be ready at some point.
And on the northern front, the Israel Defense Forces say troops have moved deeper into southern Lebanon as part of an expanded buffer zone against Hezbollah, though this currently falls short of a full-on ground invasion. At the same time, there are persistent reports that direct talks between Israel and Lebanon are now expected in the coming days. ILTV's Devo Klein has been following the developments.
The IDF says the 91st Galilee Division launched a raid in the eastern sector of southern Lebanon late Saturday, where troops encountered and killed several Hezbollah operatives. The military says the operation is aimed at expanding what it calls a forward defensive area, including the destruction of terror infrastructure and the elimination of armed cells operating near the border. Before ground forces advanced, the IDF said it carried out heavy airstrikes and artillery fire to remove threats in the area. The army added that troops have already moved deeper into southern Lebanon beyond 5 existing positions, part of what it calls a forward defensive line designed to create an extra security layer for communities in the north. Even with troops advancing in Lebanon, Israeli officials have told Reuters that Jerusalem and Beirut are expected to hold talks in the coming days, aimed at securing a durable ceasefire and the disarmament of Hezbollah. Former Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer would be leading the talks for Israel, with the participation of U.S. and French mediators. Beirut is forming a delegation, but no date for the meeting has been finalized. Lebanon reportedly wants clarity on whether Israel would abide by President Yosef Ayoun's demand for a full ceasefire to allow negotiations to take place. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar is denying that talks between Israel and Lebanon were planned.
For the two questions, the answer is no. Hezbollah is working accordingly to instructions from Tehran, not from Beirut. They are acting against the will of Lebanon and its citizens. If the Lebanese government and the Lebanese army want to change something, they should do something in order to stop the attacks being done by Hezbollah from Lebanese territory. Until now, they hadn't done anything significant in order to stop it.
For now, the talks are proposed but not yet finalized, while the IDF, meanwhile, is advancing with no sign of a potential ceasefire.
And joining us now with the latest on Operation Roaring Lion and Operation Epic Fury is Professor Chuck Freilich, former Deputy National Security Advisor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So we're hearing now from the IDF that the war is proceeding faster than expected, something we've also heard from President Trump, and that it's set to last another 3 weeks at the least. So are Israel and the United States still in lockstep here regarding the ongoing operation, as well as the endgame for this war?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't expect either the U.S. or Israel to say otherwise, that we're behind the schedule. But on a purely military level, there's no doubt that this war is proceeding very effectively. Iran has suffered severe damage so far. The question is what we're trying to achieve here and what the end game is. If it's just causing Iran severe damage, then I think we're close to being able to bring the war to an end. If it is still about toppling the regime, well, that is a very, very tall order. I'm not sure that both the U.S. and Israel really are committed to it. And that will take a lot of time. I'm not sure that 3 to 4 weeks begins to be enough.
And, you know, we have heard initially President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu both speaking about regime change. I mean, they haven't necessarily said straightforward, you know, we want regime change, but it's very clear that that was at least on the table initially. And lately, the rhetoric has shifted a little bit. Do you think that regime change is still possible?
Well, first of all, I think they both were about as explicit as one can be in terms of favoring regime change. I don't know that it can be done, certainly just from the air. Israel has been conducting a reasonably intensive campaign against regime targets, IRGC, the besieged militia, and even local police stations, on the assumption that if you weaken the pillars of regime repression, then maybe you create an opening for the people to come out into the streets again. The U.S. hasn't, to my understanding, been doing as much of this. And if we still want to try and achieve regime change, then that has to be done on a very large scale. And I'm not sure that Trump has the stomach for the time that will be required to do so, whether he's got the political capital, political wherewithal to do it, and the personal stomach for it.
Do you believe that the United States will eventually have no choice but to put boots on the ground, especially not only for the regime change issue, but also in terms of the nuclear material that we know is still under the mountain, buried somewhere in Iran? And does Trump, you know, would he have the backing of the American people, or would this, do you think, be a red line in terms of what Americans are willing to stomach?
Well, I don't think the U.S. will be deploying any significant ground force. Of course, there can be some limited special forces operation, but if there's an attempt to gain control over the 400 kilos of highly enriched uranium, that's apparently not a small special operations force, but a pretty big special forces operation. And again, it's questionable whether Trump has the stomach for that. And it would be a very dangerous operation for a variety of reasons, just starting with the basic operational aspect to it and being able to remove the material itself. At the moment, for the last 9 months, Iran has not been able to access this material because it's still under the rubble of the targets that were hit back in June. And that's something that we can probably continue policing, so to speak, from the air. So I don't know that a ground operation is required for that. It might be required for regime change, but I don't think that, the American public is against the operation as it is. To then bring in any significant ground force, I think would really encounter severe opposition.
Yeah, we have seen very different polls on whether the United States, the people are for the operation, against the operation, conflicting polls. Some show that the Republicans are very much in favor, others show less favor. But I do want to also address the issue of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which has become a major issue for the United States and for the entire world. Now, President Trump is trying to build an international coalition, even though we've seen many European countries, European allies who are trying to take a step back, perhaps to appease the Iranians. I mean, what is your assessment of this and of the chances to build an international coalition here?
Well, first of all, I don't believe that the U.S. really needs an international coalition to do it. If it wants to open the straits, it can do so. It might require a little bit more time to further build up American naval forces in the Gulf area, but even that I think is questionable. And the fact that the president is trying to put the onus for this on the other allies, on the one hand, they're allies that should come to the United States assistance in its hour of need. At the same time, he didn't bother to consult with any of them before the war broke out. So it is a little bit hard to expect them to immediately adhere to what he would want them to do. I imagine that we'll see a fair amount of American pressure in the next few days, and we'll see some of the allies joining in the effort, but maybe not too many. Let's wait and see.
And I want to also pivot now to Lebanon. You know, we see Hezbollah dragging the country into war on behalf of the Islamic regime. What do you make of this new ceasefire proposal put forward by the French?
But it's more than a ceasefire proposal. It's supposed to have a diplomatic aspect. In other words, it's actually establishing relations are certainly the first steps towards establishing relations between Lebanon and Israel. And of course, that would be a very, very welcome outcome. And we have a Lebanese government today and Lebanese public opinion, which are as about as determined to weaken Hezbollah's stranglehold over Lebanon that we've seen in decades. And yet at the same time, for this plan to go forward, it requires that the Lebanese government, the Lebanese armed forces, be willing to really finally bite the bullet and take Hezbollah on. And that's, of course, a condition, a precondition from Israel's point of view. And I don't see them being able to do so or having the military capability and the political wherewithal to do this.
Absolutely. Professor Chuck Freilich, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
And moving on, ILTV's Mayan Hoffman is now standing by in Jerusalem with the latest on the rocket attacks targeting Israel from Iran and Hezbollah. Quite a day. Mayan, what can you tell us? How many people have been injured so far? What's happening so far today?
Sure, Lidar. So I'm here in Jerusalem, where actually just minutes ago we had a number of siren rail, and we had a number of shrapnel or impact hits here in the city. We're talking about hits in the old city of Jerusalem, in the Jewish quarter, and what I understand in areas of East Jerusalem. We're talking about hits on a big Beit Midrash or a synagogue in one of the ultra-Orthodox areas. We're hearing about a home that was hit, a shrapnel that fell down in Mebaseret Zion, right on the outskirts of Jerusalem. And I want to add that there was a car accident that occurred in Kiryat Gat, where a siren also was sounding. An older man around the age of 50 got off a bus and was hit by a car. He's in serious condition as a result of the car speeding to get to shelter in that siren attack, something that we've now seen more than once since the start of the escalation. These have been very, very loud blast interceptions. We're not hearing of any major injuries. We know that one of the residents of East Jerusalem went to pick up a piece of shrapnel and was lightly injured in that moment. Again, we want to remind people that these pieces of shrapnel and the cluster bombs that are falling do contain explosives, are hot, are sharp. And if you see one on the ground, you should not approach it, but rather call the police to come and intervene. We also know that there were some hits in Beit Shemesh. Remember, that is where on the second day of the war, we saw one of the most major attacks that killed 9 people. So that has all happened today, as well as you mentioned, sirens in the center and certainly in the north, where Hezbollah is launching rockets and drones as well. We're seeing this in coordination many times. So we're seeing the north and the center and Jerusalem happening at the same time.
Absolutely. So Israel still under attack, still under missile fire from Iran and Lebanon. Maayan, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
And tonight in Israel, children are going to sleep with the sound of sirens, rockets, and uncertainty. Schools are closed, families have been evacuated from their homes, and many parents have been called away for reserve duty. For thousands of children, the trauma of war has become part of everyday life. But in the middle of this crisis, help is reaching them. For over 20 years, Shiloh Israel Children's Fund has been on the front lines of the emotional battle, bringing urgent trauma care to the children who need it most. Through its mobile therapy unit, trained trauma therapists travel directly to children in their homes and to hotels housing evacuated families. Instead of waiting for help, the help comes to them, providing immediate emotional support, stabilization, and care for children struggling with fear and trauma. These moments of care can mean the difference between lasting trauma and the beginning of healing. But this critical work depends on people who are willing to help. So if you want to stand with Israel's children during this time of crisis, please donate today. You can visit israelchildren.org/now, because every child deserves the chance to heal. And moving on, amid the war in Iran, the relatively dormant Gaza front is now heating up. An Israeli airstrike hit a Hamas police vehicle in central Gaza on Sunday, killing at least 8 armed officers, including Colonel Iyad Abu Yusef, head of the intervention unit. The strike took place near the south-north Salah ad-Din route in Al-Zawaida, according to Hamas's interior ministry. Hospitals confirmed the deaths and said 14 others were wounded. Israeli officials described the target as a vehicle transporting armed terrorists, part of ongoing operations against Hamas in Gaza amid the U.S.-mediated ceasefire. And the IDF has now confirmed that the Michigan synagogue terrorist was the brother of a slayed Hezbollah commander. Ayman Mohammed Ghazali, 41 years old, a naturalized U.S. citizen born in Lebanon, rammed an explosive-laden vehicle into Temple, Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan last week. The IDF says his brother, Ibrahim Mohammed Ghazali, was a Hezbollah commander killed by Israel days earlier, responsible for managing rocket attacks against Israeli civilians. The FBI says Ayman died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound during the incident, which also wounded the synagogue security director and exposed officers to smoke inhalation. Children and staff were safely evacuated, and authorities recovered commercial-grade fireworks and flammable liquids in the vehicle, some of which were consumed in the fire. And moving on, Israel is now changing the way missile warnings are issued as the war with Iran continues. The IDF's Homefront Command says the country will now be divided into 21 separate alert zones, replacing the previous system of just 4 regions. Officials say the change is designed to improve accuracy and reduce false alerts by sending warnings only to areas actually at risk from incoming missiles or interceptor debris. The upgraded system uses operational data and new technology to better predict potential impact zones. Civil defense guidelines for the public remain the same. Residents are still urged to enter a protected space when sirens sound and stay there until an all clear is given.
שבימים האחרונים אנחנו עושים פעולות לשיפור ושדרוג מערכות ההתראה שלנו מתוך כוונה לצמצם את אזורי ההנחיה המקדימה. ואל מול הדבר הזה אנחנו פועלים לדייק את ההנחיה המקדימה ובכך שפחות אנשים יקבלו אותה שלא לצורך. ברצוני להוסיף ולהביע הערכה עצומה לארגוני החירום ולכוחות החילוץ וההצלה של פיקוד העורף שפרוסים בפריסה שעון.
Day with an amusing story. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who many believed was assassinated in the war with Iran, is not only alive, but he's posted a comical video. Rumors once and for all. ILTV's Devo Klein has the report.
Was Prime Minister Netanyahu killed in an Iranian ballistic missile strike? That's certainly what Bibi haters were hoping to hear, but now this video is proving otherwise.
מה שאלת אותי?
ראש הממשלה אומרים ברשת שאתה בכלל מת?
אני מת על קפה, אתה יודע מה? אני מת על העם שלי. איך הם מתנהגים, פנטסטי. אתה רוצה לספור את מספר אצבעות?
אתה יכול להראות לנו?
פה.
Netanyahu was responding, of course, to claims online that he had 6 fingers in his latest address, meaning he must be dead, and the video is AI generated. But that wasn't enough, as now rumors are suggesting that the coffee shop video itself was made using AI. The truth is, the prime minister is not only alive, but managing a joint Israeli-American war on the Islamic regime in Iran. He's taking an active role on the home front and encouraging the people of Israel every day.
לצאת להתאוורר, אבל ליד מרחב מוגן. והעמידה שלכם היא מדהימה, נותנת כוח לי, לממשלה, לצה"ל, למוסד. אנחנו עושים דברים שאני לא יכול לשתף ברגע זה, אבל עושים דברים מכים באיראן חזק מאוד, גם ביום הזה, גם בלבנון, ממשיכים. אתם אומרים לי להמשיך? אני אומר לכולכם, גם אתם תמשיכו. תמשיכו להישמע להוראות פיקוד העורף, כל הזמן, להישמע להוראות פיקוד העורף, וגם לראשי הערים, להיות תמיד ליד מרחב מוגן. ואנחנו נקל ככל שהדבר ניתן. ותודה לך על הקפה, הוא מצוין. אני לא יודע לגבי הקלוריות, זה נראה לי מסוכן מאוד.
Alive and well and drinking coffee. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies and scattered showers are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 9 degrees Celsius or 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies with steady temperatures of highs of 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's at ILTV_Israel on all platforms. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Nadar Gavelazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.
People who forget what they read before they even finish the page. It's not ADHD, it's an untrained brain. Here is the brutal truth. If you read a book and forget it next week, you didn't learn anything. You just wasted your time. You're trying to fill a bucket that has holes in it. Most people think a bad memory is permanent. That's nonsense. Your brain is like a muscle. If you don't train it, it gets flabby. You need cognitive reps. The solution? Intelligence training plan. It's 15 minutes a day of intense memory drills, not boring flashcards, real neuro training. In 30 days, you stop being a sieve and start being a sponge. Names, numbers, facts, they stick instantly. Stop being the person who has to look it up. Be the one who knows. Take the 3-minute quiz, follow the plan for 15 minutes a day, and unlock more of your potential. Tap the screen and get started.
I'm not 30 anymore, I'm 54.
And you could see the incoming Iranian ballistic missiles over Syrian airspace as some of them were intercepted. And just stay with me here. I just want to talk to my crew very quickly to ensure we know what's happening. But just to give you a sense of how quickly these things happen, the Israelis do get an alert ahead of time. And an official told me just before we got on air here that the top spokesman for the Israeli military, and I'm just going to step out of the frame here, Yaniv, off in the distance, look at the skyline, and you're going to see this is likely Israel's Arrow defense system or David Sling. These are live images coming to you right now as Israel works to intercept incoming ballistic missile fire. This is a very fluid situation, so stay with us here. And I'm just going to toss it back to you for 10 seconds as I talk to the crew. I want to make sure everyone is prepared in case we need to move quickly.
Trey, do what you have to do. We'll check back in with you in a moment. Get back to Ben Hall. Ben, your thoughts?
Well, Sandra, remember that we saw some of these similar attacks last year when the Iranians fired about 200 missiles at Israel. And in that case, the Iron Dome and the other air defense systems shot down all of them, except about, I believe it was 60 of them. Now, at that point, the air defense systems were able to handle it. But Iran has thousands of ballistic missiles. And the thinking is if they want to overwhelm those air defense systems, then they would fire them in much bigger bursts. We don't yet know how many have been fired at this point, but that is the only way that the Iranians will be able to get around the Israeli air defense system. So we have to see what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, Ben, this is happening at the moment. This is a live shot. You can see the skies lighting up there. Trey, if you're in a safe position to do so, please do tell us what you're seeing and hearing.
Yeah, Sandra, this is a significant attack. The attack the Israelis have been preparing for in response. Air raid sirens are now starting to sound across Tel Aviv, an indication, and I can see interceptors coming off from all directions. We don't know exactly how many missiles have been fired by the Iranians, but this is Israel's second largest city, a population of 300,000 people. And right now they are headed, and you're seeing an interception right there, up to the sky, Yaniv. Just stay with us. We just need to be calculated here. We're good here, and we are going to, okay, so right now what we are seeing, Sandra, is Israel's missile defense systems, likely along with American systems, working to intercept incoming ballistic missile fire. This is the attack that the Israeli army warned about. We spoke with officials before we started this live report, and they said they actually had to cut short a statement by Israel's top spokesman because they got some information that this attack was about to be underway. These sirens that you hear off in the distance, again, are used to warn the population to get into shelters. And we're just going to wait and see what information we can gather about this. And we have a statement right now, Sandra, from the IDF, and I'm just going to read it to you in real time. A short while ago, sirens sounded in several areas across Israel following the identification of missiles from Iran toward the state of Israel. The public is asked to follow the instructions of the Home Front Command. At this time, the Israeli Air Force is operating to intercept and strike where necessary to eliminate the threat. It's essential to continue following the instructions of the Home Front Command. And so, again, the Israelis are operating in real time, not only to strike the missile launching positions inside of Iran, but also to shoot down any of that fire. And they will use the defense systems on the ground, but also fighter jets, if there are any sort of drones that are flying toward Israel to try to distract the air defense systems. But it gives you a sense. Okay, and I'm going to have my cameraman go back to the skyline here, and you're going to see more interceptor rounds coming off over Tel Aviv. The Iranians are targeting major population centers in Israel, again, in response to the operation overnight that took out a number of IRGC officials. And we can see flashes in the skies over Tel Aviv. Just pull out of this shot here a little bit, Yaniv, and I'm just going to talk to my cameraman while we're talking here. So there are some interceptors. Okay, there are interceptors coming in off the sea. And you're going to see some in the distant skyline. There's a missile and it is headed down. So some of this I can already see, John and Sandra, is not being intercepted. We just saw one of the missiles. Okay, and there's an interception right over Tel Aviv. Pull out here, Yaniv, and you're going to see the trail. Just listen here. Okay. This is some short-range systems. Stay here, Yaniv. Pull out a little bit. Okay, there's just a massive amount of fire coming to Tel Aviv right now. You need to get ready to pull it off the stick. Get off the sticks. All right, let's go. Time to go. Okay. Guys, come on. Everyone move. Everyone move now. Stay with us. Stay with us. Pick up the gear. Let's go.
All right, so there you can see, I mean, this has happened again. We've seen this before, but this is a barrage of missiles, the likes of which we maybe did not see the last time. And the other unknown, Sandra, is as Iron Dome and David Sling and the Arrow system and the Terminal High Altitude Air Defense systems are all going off at the same time, it seems here. The last time this happened, there was a coordinated defense between Israel, the United States, and other countries, including Jordan, to intercept these with aircraft as well. Trey, I mean, it's unbelievable to see what we're seeing going on in the skies above Tel Aviv right now.
Yeah, John, Sandra, you saw those live images. Israel is under a massive ballistic missile barrage. I've reported here for nearly 7 years and never seen such an attack against an Israeli city. The amount of air defense that you saw going off there it's unprecedented. It appears that they are targeting some of these centrally located positions in Tel Aviv. Targeting not only their nuclear facilities, but also top IRGC officials, including the leader of the IRGC, Hussein Salami. And we can expect more Israeli strikes in response to this. Just given how intense the fire, almost certainly American defense systems were involved in this. We do not know if anything has been hit, but in the distance, we could see some of those ballistic missiles slipping past air defense and slamming into the ground. It's unclear at this point what they were able to hit.
So, Trey, per a military official directly to Fox News, just want to reiterate to our audience, dozens of Iranian ballistic missiles are en route to Israel. The people of Israel have been instructed to remain in bomb shelters until further notice. Based on the activity we just saw there, Trey, one might think there's more coming.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a country that is prepared for the possibility of days of missile attacks coming from the Iranian regime. Even last night when Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke, he talked about the fact that Israelis would have to stay in shelters much longer than they had to during previous rounds. And I just want to check my phone here as we're talking. As you noted, dozens of Iranian ballistic missiles being fired and reports of an impact in Tel Aviv. Again, people are in shelters, but these shelters known as mamads here that are attached to apartments and houses are meant for, they're meant for rockets coming from places like the Gaza Strip. And guys, come back. Okay, stay with us, guys. There's an impact site very close to here. Just stay with us. Talk to me, John. Sandra, I'm with you.
Yep, we're here.
Yeah, so we can see that some smoke is rising from an area of downtown Tel Aviv as we saw a missile impact there. We don't know if it was a missile that came in unintercepted or if it was the remnants of a missile that was intercepted that landed. But you can see a lot of smoke there, Trey, rising from downtown Tel Aviv.
Yeah, and guys, I want to caution here. We don't know at this point what was hit, and we can't even confirm this impact. There are initial reports of an impact, but the air defense systems that were also working from that very area in the heart of Israel's second largest city. And so we often see smoke like that following air defense systems being active. We simply don't know what was hit and what part of the city it was hit, and we'll continue to gather that information. But as we talk here, and I'm going to just look at my phone for a moment because I'm seeing if any of our military sources have texted me about what's happening.
Hey,
but
Trey,
as we move forward,
Trey,
the Israelis are preparing.
If I could just jump in here for a second, Trey, as you were moving inside with your crew, we did see an impact and an explosion in that area where the smoke is rising from now with a remote camera. So it does look like there was some sort of missile impact.
Yeah, and look, this area of Tel Aviv is very densely populated, right next to a main highway that moves along. I'm being very careful. We're getting some information in, but I just can't confirm it in real time. And so I'm being very careful with what I tell you, given how sensitive this is. What I can say, just according to the couple text messages I just read from Israeli security sources, this is a very significant attack, and emergency crews are responding, ensuring that no one was injured and checking different areas of Tel Aviv. I do want to just review what we saw when we started this hit out on this balcony, John and Sandra. We saw Israel's missile defense systems active from all directions. And the fact that these close-range systems in Tel Aviv were active so close to where we were, intercepting missiles just over this city, it's an indication, once again, that Israel has the capability to shoot down some of this incoming fire, but not all of it. And that is part of the concern as this story develops and as the Israelis continue to strike Iran. They can hit many of these launching positions, but the Iranians have thousands of ballistic missiles that they could use against Israel. And as we heard in that statement that we got from an Iranian official coming from Iran's supreme leader, they are preparing for war with Israel. And Israeli officials are not yet calling it a war, but what we are looking at is days of conflict ahead. The city is very quiet right now because people are still in bomb shelters. This is a country that has experienced these types of missile attacks before. And when we look back to the October 2024 missile attack that was conducted by the Iranians, there were around 300 ballistic missiles that were fired at this country. And initially, some of the officials that we talked to, and it's why I'm being very careful with what I'm saying here, they told us that many of them were intercepted. It was very successful. The reality was videos started to come out showing that Israeli bases took significant damage because these missiles are traveling so fast and there's only a limited amount of air defense capability on the ground here. And remember, that was a missile attack that was in response to the killing of the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, and Hamas leadership, including Ismail Haniyeh, in the Iranian capital of Tehran. What we saw overnight, it's hard to even put into words how much more significant it is. What we're looking at right now is the big conflict that everyone discussed for decades, a possibility between Israel and Iran. Overnight, the Israelis took out the entirety of Iran's IRGC Air Force leadership. Again, as we can report from sources that we've talked to in the Israeli security establishment, that was a surprise attack. They got these officials to a meeting point in Iran and kept them there before killing all of them. They killed the head of the IRGC. They killed Iran's top nuclear scientist. They have damaged both the Natanz facility and other enrichment facilities in Iran. They have targeted missile production sites. They have targeted launching positions. And the Israelis are continuing to strike Iran as we speak. And so it places what is happening right now in such a larger frame. The one thing that we should note here, and this is very important when we look at the context of the current ballistic missile attack that just took place against Israel and the ongoing conflict between officials here that are now conducting an ongoing operation against Iran and the Iranians, is that Iran no longer has the strength of its proxies, like Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. Now, the Houthis have still been able to maintain a ballistic missile capability. Earlier today, they fired a ballistic missile at Israel, and it actually landed outside the West Bank city of Hebron. But they are able to fire in very small moments. They're not able to launch large barrages. Hezbollah was long considered the biggest threat to Israel in a possible conflict with Iran. But as we know, the Israelis methodically took out the leadership of Hezbollah, from Hassan Nasrallah to members of the Radwan forces. We were with Israeli forces on the ground in southern Lebanon as they cleared out the villages and the rocket launching positions along the border. And they've gone off after the precision missile components and sites in Lebanon, in the capital of Beirut. And so Israel's main focus right now is defending not about attacks from places like Gaza or Lebanon or Yemen, but directly from Iranian territory. And we know that they have the ability to strike major population centers. We're getting in some new information now from the top spokesman for the medics in Tel Aviv. And they say that following the recent red alert sirens, no calls have been received for emergency dispatch at this time. So it's an indication that despite the fact we saw some of those missiles landing inside Israel and those interceptions overhead that certainly create significant shrapnel that rains down on the population below. At this point, initial reports indicate there are no injuries. Again, this is very preliminary information. And as we talk here again, I'm just checking through the different sources that we're getting information from. And I again, just want to be very careful about what I report live here because we're getting a lot of different information and we need to confirm it in real time. John,
well,
Sandra?
that certainly would be extraordinary, Trey, if you don't have any injuries. We saw at least 3 impacts. Looked like a couple were from damaged missiles that had been intercepted, and then one seemed to come in full force, and the smoke hanging over Tel Aviv. But if indeed this is the beginning of war between Israel and Iran, it would seem to me that it's going to look very different depending on which country you're in. Iran has no other capability, it would seem, other than to throw these ballistic missiles into Israel. Meantime, Israel is capable of widely penetrating Iran's airspace, launching pinprick attacks to take out its infrastructure. And so Iran's got to be worried that while it may be able to lob missiles at Israel and get the odd impact, as we saw here tonight, Israel can hit where it wants, when it wants, and who it wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the other part of all of this, and I think it's something we have to talk about, it's the American forces and the bases and embassies across the region. And we saw earlier in the week a decision that was made by the Americans to partially evacuate the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. All non-essential personnel told to leave. Other embassies and U.S. missions in places like Bahrain and Kuwait, there was a voluntary evacuation order for the family members of embassy staff and military forces in these areas. The concern is that not only will Iran try to target Israeli population centers like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but that the Iranians will try to target U.S. bases and U.S. forces in the Middle East. And I think back to January of 2020, I was in Baghdad, Iraq, reporting following the drone strike that was ordered by President Trump to kill top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. And at the time, the Iranians responded with 13 ballistic missiles, and they soared through the skies of Iraq and targeted Western Iraq at a base called Ain al-Assad. There is concern that something like this could happen in the hours and days ahead as the Iranians respond to the Israeli strikes.
All right, Trey,
John,
we're going to let you catch your breath, check in on your sources. We'll check back in with you shortly.
Explore and travel around South Korea by train.
The operation was again launched with clear military objectives designed to dismantle Iran's ability to project power outside of its borders. First, we are targeting and eliminating Iran's ballistic missile systems. Second, we are destroying the Iranian Navy. Third, we're ensuring Iran cannot rapidly rebuild or reconstitute its combat capability or combat power.
It was a long and detailed briefing and update on Operation Epic Fury that wrapped up in the last hour or so. And it's on Iran operations. New Israeli airstrikes are hitting deep inside Iran now. And Israel says it is targeting the Islamic regime's air defenses and missile launch sites. Iran and its proxy Hezbollah terrorists are firing barrages of rockets, drones, and missiles toward civilians in the region. And just this morning, an Israeli Defense Force official told Fox Iran and Hezbollah have started coordinating their attacks. So it's not just giving them money, which we know that terror state of Iran does with its proxies. Now they're in coordination with one of those terror groups. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Admiral Brad Cooper, head of U.S. Central Command, provided this update on U.S. military action.
Now we're less than 100 hours into this operation, and we've already struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions. We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. Our B-2 bombers and B-1 bombers have executed uncontested surgical strikes against multiple missile facilities deep inside Iran.
And this would be the goal. The Pentagon says the strikes are devastating Iran's military capabilities. U.S. bombers using precision strikes on missile facilities inside Iran. Officials say many of those targets were hit with no effective Iranian air defense response at all. Here's more from Admiral Cooper.
Now, in retaliation, the Iranian regime has launched over 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones. To be clear, Iran is indiscriminately targeting civilians as they launch these missiles and drones. You've seen it on TV. The evidence is crystal clear and overwhelming.
And it's been wave and wave after wave of that. Iranian missiles and drones have hit cities and population centers across the region. So they're not targeting military, they're targeting citizens of their neighbors. And I've been saying this since Saturday. We know that they have hit people who are more than just neutral toward them. Israeli and U.S. air defenses continue to intercept many of those incoming. But some are still making it through. Iran's regime is targeting diplomatic sites in the region. A CIA station at the U.S. Embassy compound in Riyadh was hit, and an Iranian drone strike hit near the U.S. consulate in Dubai. So far, no reports of any American injuries. The Israeli military is releasing videos of new strikes inside Iran, including this successful hit on a missile storage and production facility about 300 miles south of the capital of Iran, Tehran. Israel's Navy very much in the fight. The IDF says this video shows Israel defenses successfully intercepting a drone launched from western Lebanon. This new video shows Israel taking out an underground weapons storage site in Beirut, Lebanon. The strike hit a Hezbollah facility below the city, part of a series of attacks on Hezbollah infrastructure in that Lebanese capital over the past day.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform made for anyone with an idea and a drive to bring it to life. Describe what you want and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one to platforms ready for many, from passion projects to enterprise-grade systems, everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality right now.
EVE Online is a
I don't think Hezbollah is going to be much of a threat to Israel. They're still unless they start to use their long-range missiles. And I doubt if they're going to do that. They don't want to get into this fight. And I think they're reluctantly in it now, being pushed by the Iranians, because the Iranians literally are fighting for their survival. And I think it's more of a desperate act in what we're seeing.
Team Fox coverage now of all of the fast-breaking news. Vice Admiral Robert Harwood will be with me coming up. Jennifer Griffin is in Washington. Let's begin with Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yinks in Tel Aviv, Israel. Trey.
Harris, good morning. I do want to start with some new information we've received from U.S. Central Command, who says in a historic first, long-range precision strike missiles were used in combat in Operation Epic Fury, providing an unrivaled deep strike capability. Admiral Brad Cooper, the CENTCOM commander, says in a statement, "I just could not be prouder of our men and women in uniform leveraging innovation to create dilemmas for the enemy." We know that Central Command is using everything in their power to go after the Iranian regime as they continue to launch these ballistic missile attacks against regional countries, U.S. forces, and Israel. The Israelis going after the Iranian regime again today. The IDF telling Fox News this evening that they have an entire strike list of targets they hit outside the capital of Tehran, including the IRGC headquarters, the Intelligence Directorate, and the Basij headquarters, all of these used to command in their efforts to strike civilians in the region. We do have a new soundbite from Effie Defrin, the top military spokesman in the IDF.
100 hours of fighting behind us, the Israeli Defense Force is facing forward. We started strong and we continue strong. We operate according to the orderly fighting plan in tight coordination and cooperation with the U.S. Army. We still have many targets and goals. In the coming days, we will proceed with the operation stages. We will deepen the harm to the regime's arrays, and we will continue dismantling its capabilities until the existential threats to the state of Israel are removed.
And in Iran, we're getting new video of empty streets, destruction there as the Israeli and American strikes continue, targeting everything having to do with the Iranian regime, looking to weaken this regime and send a message that they cannot win this war. A new statement from a resident in Tehran describes what they heard and saw earlier today.
There were 3 strong blasts, one after another. The third one was very powerful. The diplomatic police near Avini Park was hit. I've come here to see what happened. The explosions were too heavy. All windows in this neighborhood have been shattered. Many buildings have been ruined and a few cars have been destroyed.
And as the Israelis are looking east, they're also looking north. The Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah getting directly involved in the fight, launching more rockets and drones over the border today. You can see in this video here, the Israelis are striking the Lebanese capital of Beirut with precision munition and a bombing campaign, trying to neutralize the threats from Hezbollah. But as we reported earlier today, Harris, there were 2 separate times where Hezbollah and Iran launched attacks against Israel, simultaneously looking to overwhelm air defense systems here. Harris?
Yeah, it's so interesting because when you and I were on the air before, during the height, right after October 7th, the height of that war with Hamas and Israel, after taking Israeli citizens and killing so many of them, we were talking about maybe even a little bit more of command and control than we actually knew of from Iran, because they weren't just giving money to those proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah. Remember, Hezbollah was then hitting almost in coordination from the north into Israel. And now we have some proof of that. Like now we have more of those receipts, if you will. Trey Yingst, great reporting. Thank you.
Yesterday in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II.
This is the video of that rare moment in modern warfare. It highlights how the U.S. operation is going deep into its toolbox to defeat the enemy. The Wall Street Journal reporting President Trump is looking ahead. He's weighing possible support for Iranian militia that could help dislodge Tehran's current radical Islamic regime. That leadership structure has been decimated by U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. We've been showing you that. Some reporting suggests Ayatollah Khamenei's oldest son has been chosen to succeed his father. But so far, we can't confirm that. A former State Department Deputy Special Envoy said this.
This is a heinous personality. He also has his own record of human rights abuses. And I could tell you that hopefully there's a big target on his head. The Iranian people will certainly reject him just the same way that they rejected the monster who his father was.
A new Fox News poll now, look at your screen, shows Americans are absolutely divided 50 to 50% over U.S. strikes in Iran. However, that same poll shows strong agreement on one point. A large majority of Americans say Iran poses a national security threat to the United States. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is in D.C. Jennifer.
Hi, Harris. Well, I was at that Pentagon briefing this morning. Secretary Hegseth and General Dan Kane were asked to explain the end state of this war, why the threat was imminent, and whether the U.S. plans to arm a Kurdish insurgency to take on the remnants of the regime. Just 100 hours into this war, the U.S. military has nearly destroyed Iran's ability to fire ballistic missiles.
Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days.
Some of those drones are still getting through. Nearly half of Iran's ballistic missiles and drones have been aimed at the United Arab Emirates. In comparison, the UAE has taken 863 incoming missiles and UAVs. Israel, in comparison, 113. Today, 2 Greek F-16s shot down 2 Iranian drones off the coast of Cyprus. Last night, Admiral Brad Cooper, the head of U.S. Central Command, he said that in comparison to the start of the Iraq War and its shock and awe campaign, this operation is twice the scale of that operation in the first 24 hours. We have more details about how a U.S. Navy sub hunted and sank one of Iran's prize Navy vessels, which thought it was safe in the Indian Ocean. The Iranians built 4 of these Corvette-class missile ships in 2022. That's when they were introduced. They were named Shahid Soleimani, or Martyr Soleimani, after General Qasem Soleimani, the head of the IRGC Quds Force, who during President Trump's first term was killed by a U.S. strike that President Trump ordered on his convoy in Baghdad.
For the first time since 1945, a United States Navy fast attack submarine has sunk an enemy combatant ship using a single Mark 48 torpedo to achieve immediate effect, sending the warship to the bottom of the sea.
Secretary Hegseth said the U.S. military had no plans to arm an insurgency, but did not rule out that other elements of the government might. In the history of modern warfare, there have only been 3 successful regime change military operations: Japan and Germany during World War II, and Panama in 1990. The rest have ended in civil war or failed states.
Also, yesterday, the leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh.
Secretary Hegseth said that was not the reason the president decided to launch this war with Israel. The focus remains on destroying Iran's ability to project power through missiles, its navy, and its nuclear program, Harris.
Jennifer, thank you very much. And focus now, Vice Admiral Robert Harwood, member of George W. Bush's National Security Council. He served as a U.S. Navy SEAL in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. So glad to have you on the program today. Thank you. Jennifer kind of teed this up, and I want to go back now to that new video of those cheap one-way drones, as they're being called. Iran is using those. Some 2,000 fired already. We learned that from Secretary Hegseth this morning. Talk to me about those drones. I'm curious, Vice Admiral, where are they coming from? Are they making them there, or is someone supplying them for purchase?
Well, as we've seen over decades, the Iranians are very industrious. And so I would not be surprised if they're building them all. And I think this is a real turning point in the war on drones. As we saw in Afghanistan and Iraq, we used drones for ISR. In Ukraine, the Ukrainians started making them kinetic. And now we're seeing mass, swarms. And so that's a real differentiator. And I got to believe we're going after the production facilities to ensure we shut down all these elements of power. And I believe if we're not there already, we may be at the tipping point of really shutting down their ability to project power. And when that occurs, a lot of capacity and focus will go on removing the current regime.
Talk to me about that tipping point. Like, how do you know militarily when you get to that point?
Well, there's some easy indicators when in Qatar, in UAE, in Saudi, when business goes back to normal, where you're seeing civilian flights, people outside a lot. I was in Abu Dhabi today playing golf, and we saw a bunch of planes coming out of commercial airports. So when the number of strikes in the countries dissipate, we're having that success. And then we can shift capacity to going after the regime. Because at the end of the day, while we can completely decimate all this, if you're going to leave a regime in power who quickly goes to reconstitute using China and Russia and their allies, we've just exacerbated the problem. So I think once we get that tipping point, and if we're not there now, I think it's coming very quickly, the focus will go on really getting rid of these guys who have been murderers and part of this regime's killing their own people to ensure government that's responsible and not repressive of its people.
You gave us such a tip of information there from your own personal experience today. You're going outside in Abu Dhabi, and that is a huge shift. We know they hit the airport. I mean, we know what's been going on there. We know that one of the universities, American universities, NYU's campus there, has been in lockdown with those kids, in place and all of that. And the fact that there has been this kind of shift, that's the kind of thing that we can watch for with those planes taking off now, commercial planes. I really appreciate that. I want to get your thoughts, though, because President Trump said yesterday, upon being asked the question, what would the worst case scenario be? He said, well, that, we do all this in 5 years. It goes right back to what you just said, Vice Admiral. Somebody either like what they already had, the Ayatollah, or worse. Talk that it could be his oldest son taking over. Fox has not independently confirmed that, but your first thoughts on that, even as a possibility?
The Iranian people won't accept that. When we reach that tipping point, and we may use surrogates like the Kurds and others to help provide and support the Iranian people are going to remember who murdered them, who repressed them. They're not going to allow that same regime, the kids of that regime, that same ideology to survive. So you can rest assured that the new government is not going to be one exporting terror, repressing its people. It's going to be ones the people will accept. So I think that's where all this is going in the not too distant future. And I hope we've hit that tipping point now, or will in the next day or two.
Well, look, there's no way to say if that new person, if it turns out to be his oldest son of the Ayatollah Khomeini or someone else within that old regime going forward, would have control of what's left of the military. And we haven't looked at what they have on the ground. And they just killed north of 35,000 of their own people for protesting. That population is not armed. Your quick thought on that, and then I'll move forward.
Well, they may get armed or they may have support. But again, we've, for the last 30 years, we've been experts finding people, fixing people, and finishing them. When we can turn the capacity of that away from projecting power now onto the leadership, you're not going to want to be the replacement. You're going to want to be part of the new government. So that's where that tipping point we're going to see in the not too distant future.
Vice Admiral Harwood, thank you so very much for being with me. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
乜頭髮定係北女咧？真係為藝術而犧牲我都可能諗下嘅。天
militarily, and I think we're going to go down that path.
There was a piece this morning, I believe, in Axios, which talked about how this looks more like a world war than anything that we have experienced since World War II in terms of these large-scale alliances. You've got 20 countries that are involved in this, the Strait of Hormuz, which you mentioned. You have France and Great Britain with sort of a delayed response, but also bringing assets into the region. Here's a map of the military assets in the Middle East, U.S., and then I'm going to follow that map by countries attacked by Iran since February 28th, when all of this started. Do you agree with that statement? Are we seeing the closest thing to a world war that we have seen since World War II?
I wouldn't go that far. It is definitely a major regional conflict. Russia and China are on the sidelines here, mostly, except for Russia helping with intel. And there's a lot of other countries around the world that are involved. But it's a major regional conflict, and I think it's showing that we have an opportunity for a grand alliance in the region with our Arab partners, Israel, for the Abraham Accords, and to move forward with combined and common defense.
I want to play for you. Obviously, you're a person with a very long and prestigious military history, and you probably don't like hearing too much from senators on Capitol Hill. But the reason I want to play these two senators talking about this conflict is to get your reaction as someone who has been on the ground and see how these things play out. Let's watch.
We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here.
I'm very worried about how long this will drag on. We are hearing no logical estimates about when it will be over.
This has been going on for 10 days, General Wald. What's your reaction?
I think I have tremendous confidence in General Kane as the chairman of JCS and Admiral Brown in the theater. I don't see this as being a giant boots on the ground invasion. I think that would be a mistake. We've talked about this over the last couple of weeks ad infinitum. We did well in Iraq in the beginning. We defeated the threat. Same thing in Afghanistan. Then we went in and decided we were going to change the country to be like us. It doesn't work. And so I think we should avoid major boots on the ground. I do think there probably are what has been described as sneakers on the ground. That would be maybe CIA or other people that are in coordination with the Israelis, and potentially, I say now, maybe a one-time operation to try to recover the nuclear uranium-rich product they have in Isfahan, potentially. But I would kind of frankly advise against it. I would go back and, as I said earlier, I'd mow the grass. If they start showing threats again in the future, I'd go back after them like we have here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we spoke with the UN ambassador about that material, 900 pounds of enriched uranium at 60% levels, which obviously, if it falls into the wrong hands, would be a problem. And it seems like both sides now agree, even though there was discussion that it might have been moved before the June 12-day war, that it is buried at Isfahan. Doesn't it seem that it would need to be secured by responsible players?
Yeah, it does seem to be that way. I mean, I think, we have fantastic intelligence. We have overhead intelligence. We can monitor it if we have to 24/7. Yeah. I think we need to be prepared to go in. I was a big favor of the B-2s back in last June at Midnight Hammer. They can go back again. I think right now they're flying over Iran with B-1s and B-52s. B-52 is going to be 100 years old and retired. And the B-52 itself can carry big bombs, real big bombs. And so I think if we see activity where it's credible that they are going back in to recover that material or to build a weapon, then we go back after it just like we did in June.
Sir, it's a pleasure to have you here. And thank you so much for your decades of service. 4-star General Charles Wald, very good to have you with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fox News alert, the U.S. military has been deploying new weapon technologies against Iran. Let's take a look at those new technologies over at the wall. First up is the Precision Strike Missile. It's also called the PRSM. It made its debut as part of Operation Epic Fury. Now, it was developed to replace the current Army tactical missile system, but the PRSM has a range that exceeds 310 miles. That's allowing, of course, for longer strikes, and its small size allows for 2 missiles on a single launch pad. Now, the military also going even more low cost with attack drones for the first time. During the conflict, they're modeling those drones after Iran's Shahed drones. That was a weapon that Iran has exported, by the way, in the war through Russia to the war in Ukraine. It's been captured and reverse engineered. And now the United States is deploying what they're calling Lucas drones, low-cost drones, at around $35,000 a drone. And then President Trump has teased another, what he's saying is even more cost-effective technology coming to the fight.
The laser technology that we have now is incredible. It's coming out pretty soon. Where literally lasers will do the work at a lot less cost.
Laser technology is coming. That's what we know now. Our next guest expects to see more of these new technologies soon. Joining me now is former Deputy Commander of U.S. Cyber Command and member of the Iran Policy Institute at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America and the retired Lieutenant General Charles Moore. General, thanks for being with us here today. Let's walk through, first of all, what I just laid out, at least the 2 that are deployed to this point, the drones and the precision missile system. How is has this changed warfare?
Hey, Will, it's great to see you. Yeah, I think you did a good job of laying it out. And what you're seeing is that we're relying still on some high tech and maybe even high expense type of weapons, like you saw with the PRISM system that you described. But we also have to be able to field a lot of the lower tech, lower cost systems like the Lucas one-way attack drones that you pointed out on the wall there, and systems that are in between of both of those ends of the spectrum.
What's fascinating to me, General, is I've led to believe in having conversations with Brett Velikovich, who is working in the drone technology industry, is that we actually lagged behind Iran when it came to those low-tech weaponry like one-way attack drones. And that some of that technology that we've been able to deploy now with the Lucas drones was actually reverse engineered from what was captured on the battlefield in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's very ironic, isn't it, that we're actually using captured Iranian technology to develop our own systems and improve upon them. We've seen them exporting these systems to Russia. They've used them in the Ukrainian war for the last 4 years. We've seen them continue to evolve and develop them. So now we've been able to take what they've done, make them even better, and now use them against them.
And tell me about what President Trump might be teasing here when it comes to lasers.
Well, we've actually already seen a demonstration of some laser capabilities in the battle space during this conflict as it relates to Iron Beam, which has been deployed by the Israelis. It's part of their integrated air defense system. It's a laser system that can go out to about 5 nautical miles. They can use it to shoot down rockets, mortars, and even the drones that we just finished talking about.
And is that exclusively to be used, lasers, defensively, or does it have an offensive capability as well?
Well, this is a ground-based system that's primarily meant to be used from a defensive perspective.
Okay. I have to wonder what the future of that technology might be when it comes to warfare, and whether or not that is always going to be ground-based, or it could be fixed to something that flies overhead, be it a drone, be it a plane, be it a satellite. That's something that's far beyond my expertise. I imagine something we'll be hearing about in the not too distant future. Lieutenant General Charles Moore, thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks, Will.
Now, here now with an assessment of Operation Epic Fury, Fox News strategic analyst General Jack Keane is with us. General, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us. 5,000 major targets in a week and a half. You see what they're doing and the threats that the president has laid on anybody that goes near the Strait of Hormuz. 2 complete top levels of leadership eviscerated. What militarily, as you analyze this, I've never seen anything like it. I don't think anybody has. What does this mean?
Well, it's really quite significant in 10 days what's been accomplished here. And really what's happening, we've got these 2 proven, experienced militaries who've come together with shared values, shared interests, and a common objective here, working together in an air campaign that exceeds anything that we have done in decades. And look at, we operated with allies before. They were willing, and some of them didn't have much capability. And some others were willing, but they wanted to be in a non-combat area. They didn't want to be threatened too much. Or they were willing, but we had to provide air support, intelligence, and logistics support from them. Here come the Israelis. They are completely willing, and they have enormous capability themselves, and it's proven capability. They know how to fight, and they want to get into the fight. And we know why this is. They're fighting for their very survival. And they are a proven, capable organization. We have a 3-star general with a full staff inside the IDF headquarters. They have a 1-star general with a full staff inside the CENTCOM headquarters. The communication that goes on is considerable. And the trust and confidence that we have with each other is also quite exceptional in terms of what we have had in the past. And that is one of the reasons why the results in terms of the execution of the plan has been so stunning and remarkable. And nobody is exaggerating anything here. This is the facts that are on the table, and you've heard them presented here. The offensive operation is succeeding daily to strip away all of their offensive capability, ballistic missiles and drones. And we're penetrating underneath the ground to underground sites to get those missiles, take down those launchers, take down the transportation that moves them, take down the command and control. It is a systematic, deliberate approach to do it. And the same thing with the drones. And the proof is there. objectively, the percentage of their ability to retaliate is down way over 90%. That is quite remarkable in itself. Defensively, Sean, we have been able to defend what they have been able to launch. They wanted to launch salvos of 25 and 50. Why? To overwhelm Israel's defenses and our own U.S. bases and our allies and partners in the region. They haven't been able to do that, only by an exception. 10 or 12, but normally 2 to 5. And that is well within our ability to handle it. And therefore, the penetration, in other words, what gets past the interceptors, is down in the single digits. It was 14% during the 12-day war. And in April, when Iran attacked Israel, it was up around 20%, which was totally unacceptable. So the fact that the casualties are light, and we certainly grieve and mourn and honor the 7 troops that we have lost and the others that are seriously wounded. And our heart goes out to their families. And with conviction, knowing what they sacrificed here, we are pursuing these objectives with deliberateness and vengeance to get this job done. But the reality is our casualties are very low. And it's because of the success of the offensive operation in taking down the means to attack, and also the success of our defensive operations in its ability to intercept it. It's true for us, it's true for our allies, and it's true for our allies in the region, and also for Israel, our partner in the fight. So yes, this operation is succeeding. 10 days in, how far do we have to go? It's based on the conditions. And that's what we mean. Based on the conditions of achieving those objectives will determine how long this takes. If you ask for an estimate in talking to our commanders about it, and I have, and the Israelis, we're talking a few more weeks to go on here. But that could change. It could be sooner based on our achievement, or it may take longer because other targets come up as opportunities for us, and we want to finish that job and make sure it's complete. That's the path we're on. Where is Iran in all of this? They got a new leader. And by selecting this leader, Sean, they have told the world that they're not going to make any changes whatsoever. This is a tyrannical, barbaric regime that is committed to its ideology to expand the Islamic revolution throughout the region and throughout the world. And if they were able to survive this, they will try to recover their nuclear program, rebuild their ballistic missile program, support their proxies, and that's not going to happen. We're going to take all of that capability away from them. What do we see inside the regime? There are some cracks in the leadership in terms of feedback that intel services are getting. There are some morale problems in the security forces. There's a huge amount of pressure that they feel. And the truth is, if you're a leader in this organization, you don't know if the fellow standing next to you is one of the informants that's working for the Mossad. Because the exquisite intelligence we get is not just from signals intelligence, our ability to listen, or our ability to see from surveillance and imagery. It comes from informants who give us valuable human intelligence. And so I'm not suggesting this is about to fold, but I am suggesting that there, as a result of 10 days of horror that has been brought to this regime, they are struggling and under pressure for sure. And it's going to get worse for them as the days go on.
As the Prime Minister said, as Kevin Corke reported, be ready. The moment is coming. As President Trump said in the beginning, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Don't let it pass. Seize that moment. General Jack Keane, thank you.
Let us bring in former NSC Chief of Staff under President Trump, Alex Gray. Alex, let's go back to the mines for a second. We've degraded Iran's Navy. Now it appears like we are well on our way to degrading their mine-laying capability. So what else can Iran do to block the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, they're running out of options. I mean, the reality is the U.S. Navy has trained for decades to be able to keep the strait open. The Iranians have some asymmetrical capabilities, so think additional proxy and terrorist group options. But we're really starting to show, I think when you saw yesterday, the U.S. Navy leading successfully leading tankers through the straits. I think you're starting to see the U.S. is really showing that we have naval mastery in the most critical choke point in the region. And the Iranians are increasingly, they certainly have some asymmetric options, as I said, but we're increasingly showing that they're going to have a limited ability going forward to use what they've long said was kind of their ace in the hole.
So Iran is said to have already begun laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Is there a way that the United States can find where those mines are to ensure tankers and vessels safe passage through the strait?
We do have some pretty sophisticated counter mine capabilities that are resident with the U.S. Navy. This is some of the most dangerous naval operations in naval warfare, but we have this capability. The U.S. has been training to do this for a long time. This is something, if you remember, in the 1980s, this is something that became an issue in the Iran-Iraq war when there were significant mine issues going on in that part of the world that international maritime traffic had to traverse. There is a lot of capacity for us to be able to deal with this. And I think President Trump is showing in those strikes that your reporter just talked about, the president's showing he is not going to tolerate the Iranians holding international maritime traffic hostage as part of this cat and mouse game they're playing.
Big picture here. Iran apparently has a new leader, but we have not seen him. Obviously, he is in hiding because the moment he gets seen, he will get killed. But how effectively can Iran's new leader lead the country, lead the military troops in an operation like this if he's never seen?
Yeah, the short answer is I don't think that there's going to be much effectiveness there. And we may need to start thinking about whatever the current post-Khamenei, the elder regime is, as something that's more temporary. Because I think what the president has made very clear is that he is looking for someone, even as we're degrading their operational capabilities in mines and drones and missiles, he's looking for an Iranian leader who understands that the chessboard has changed, and an Iranian leader who understands that the time of trying to pull us back and play whack-a-mole in the Middle East is over under President Trump's watch. And I think whoever that leader is, whether it's Khamenei the Younger or someone else, they're going to have a quick choice to make in the next couple of days about whether they're willing to kind of take the losses, move on, or if they're going to keep trying to play this game. I think if that's the approach they want to take, they have chosen the wrong American administration.
Okay, and Alex, finally, forecasting things that could come. The New York Post has a headline, Why the Iran War May Come Down to Control of One Tiny Island. They go on to say an island 1/3 the size of Manhattan controls virtually all Iranian crude oil exports. And experts say its fate could be essential to President Trump's endgame with Tehran. They're talking about Karg Island, which handles roughly 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. And taking it out means that it would cut the military budget significantly. It would also really plug up basic services that keep Iran society functioning. But doing so and controlling that island apparently comes with significant military challenges. So what happens here?
Yeah, look, Karg Island is something that the U.S. military, as with the Straits, we've been aware for a long time that that's a key choke point for the Iranians, both economically and militarily. The U.S. military, as well as our Israeli counterparts, know very well what those capabilities are that need to be brought to bear to neutralize that. And I think President Trump, one of the things that he's looking at right now, most likely, is he's got a series of options up and down the range of escalation. And I think what they're likely thinking, Carly, is what are the Iranians willing to do to de-escalate this and to give the United States the strategic wins that we have to have, or things like Karg Island are very much going to be on the table.
Major firepower on display in the Middle East as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff lays out key objectives in Operation Epic Fury Day 12.
The joint force remains focused on 3 military objectives. Continue to destroy Iranian ballistic missiles and drone capability. Second, we continue to strike the Iranian Navy and their capabilities in order to do things like sustain movement through the Straits of Hormuz. And third, we continue to start working on and going deeper into Iran's military and industrial base in order to prevent the regime from being able to attack Americans, our interests, and our partners for years to come.
Meanwhile, Iran attempting to lay down mines in the Strait of Hormuz, but U.S. forces acting quickly. They took out 16 Iranian mine-laying ships in the area. Let's bring in retired Navy captain, former Pentagon official, Brent Sadler. Brent, the warning might have been effective, blowing up the ships, but they still have 80% of those little boats that they say can carry 2 to 3 mines available to them.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a terror approach. They put a few mines in the water. They can actually cause a lot of reaction on the defensive side to clear those mines. But the end results, that even that's not going to really keep the straits closed as much as like insurance rates, making it too expensive for the shipping companies to even go through the Gulf. So it's a combination of kinetic, but also financial.
So getting that strait open, it was, oil is at 120 a barrel. Now it's down to about 85 a barrel. It'll be around that. And I'm sure we'll feel a little bit at the pump. But do you think that the American people should say, okay, this is the sacrifice we have in the short term to ultimately take down the enemy of our country for the last 47 years, and ultimately we'll be saving money in the big picture?
Oh, absolutely, and saving lives. I mean, the 47th president taking out this regime after 47 years is kind of interestingly coincidental. But absolutely, it's in our best interest. It's also in the region's best interest to save lives and also perhaps even have a better economic forecast in the future. But again, the oil spiked, and we've seen this from time and time again in crisis in the past, and then it drops very rapidly. Whether it continues on a downward trend or if it hovers at a price point slightly higher, it's to be seen. But clearly, nothing so far has really had a dramatic impact or a lasting impact on the price of oil. And there's lots of options to get oil moving around the world. It doesn't have to all go through that Gulf.
Okay, and Carg Island, you just told me in the break, we don't necessarily have to take it. We could park ships outside it, and we could decide who comes in and out. That would be enough.
That's correct. You don't have to have physical control to actually control the oil or the trade, actually, for that matter, going in and out of Iran. You could do a reverse straits control on them. The Iranians have always threatened to actually shut down the Straits of Hormuz. We very easily could do the same thing to them a lot more effectively.
Prime Minister Netanyahu says, get ready, Iranian people. You have a chance to take back your country. They're doing a lot of work on the ground, Brent. We don't want to give anything away. But my sense is he's not saying that arbitrarily. He's very calculated. What would have to happen for the Iranian people to have the confidence to rise up?
Whoa. What's that? I just built a budgeting app in Base 44. Guys, Nina just built an app.
Impossible. Nina can't code. Interesting. Can it generate reports?
It can now.
Nice. So you're saying we can all build apps now?
Yeah.
I'm on lunch.
I gotta make a call.
I'll be in my office.
Just built an inventory tracker.
Protein calculator.
Book sharing app.
A workflow manager that
Tracks who still owes for the group lunch.
trash duty schedule. Since no one seems to care. Just built a
I just created a goal tracking system.
We built the same thing, didn't we?
Yep. Can this thing manage contacts? Is the SOC 2 compliant?
I want to animate this graph. Create a party planner.
Profesor de Español. An inter-office dating app.
For dogs. For office dogs. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the key thing is to have enough of a space where there isn't an IRGC or the Bastage on the street that's the muscle of this regime present. So again, trying to provide an opportunity through these kinetic attacks from the air that provide them an opportunity free of that kind of physical threat. And that's a tall order to make. The other is to also try to, if there is a favorable leader, to try to support them as much as you can from a distance as they try to stand up and push back against the regime. Not an easy thing. It's always going to be an ugly process, but this is for the Iranians to take.
So, Brent, one of the reasons I understand that the Israelis have had such great intelligence on the ground in Iran, and we've seen that displayed over the last few years, is because there's so many in the Iranian Iranian population that hate their government, and they've basically become sources for the Israelis. Is that part of it? Do you think that they finally tapped into all their contacts, and this is a legitimate go? This isn't rhetoric. This is a legitimate go sign that's about to be installed.
Well, the operations are clearly shifting to attack the IRGC, that on the street, their presence. And so the operations are going to shift, and the tempo and the intensity is going to go up and accordingly. I don't think the Mossad or the Israelis have spent all of their resources to get to this point. And I do think a large part of why we're seeing so much effectiveness on their part is because the Iranian people are so disaffected. In past protests, you had roughly about half the population that was clearly disaffected. In this most recent, back in January, where the regime killed upwards of 32,000 protesters, you had indications that well over 80% of the population, for a host of reasons, were very disaffected with this government. The problem is the reasons for being disaffected go from economic to religious to political. It's not a unified, opposition, so to speak. And it took over a year in the 79 revolution. Hopefully it won't take that long to get rid of this 47-year terror regime.
Brent Sadler, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Meanwhile, efforts to get Americans out of the Middle East continue. The State Department officials saying over 40,000 U.S. citizens have returned home since the war with Iran started, including nearly 30,000 who got assistance from the State Department's 24/7 task force. Many getting home on State Department charter flights and protected by diplomatic security agents deployed across the Middle East. It's an ongoing story. We'll keep you posted.
The President of the United States has made it very clear. Holding Americans is a liability.
Our mission is clear. Bring our citizens home and ensure those responsible face American justice.
So you hear it there, U.S. officials speaking at a ceremony honoring Americans being held hostage abroad earlier this week. It's an issue that the Iran war has brought into stark focus now, with 6 Americans currently believed to be wrongly detained by the Iranian regime. One of those Americans is 61-year-old Kamran Hekmati, who's detained at Evin prison. Our next guest has been working to get him out. For more on that, we're going to bring in Kieran Ramsey. He's Chief Intelligence Officer at Global Reach and former Director of U.S. government efforts to bring American hostages home. Kieran, good morning to you, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Good morning, Bill.
So tell us a little bit more about Kamran Hekmati. I understand he owns a business, a jewelry business here in New York. What happened to him? When was he taken by Iran?
Look, Kamran Hekmati is a New Yorker. He owns a business, a jewelry business in New York City. He lives out on Long Island, but he's a proud Persian American who had fled the Iranian regime back in '79, but still had to go back there for family reasons. And in May of last year, he traveled back, went to leave and return home to New York. The Iranian authorities stopped him, took his American passport, took his phone, said, "You cannot leave." So he was placed under an exit ban. And then fast forward, after the 12-day war in July of last year, he was then formally arrested and charged with visiting Israel, which happened like 13 years ago, which is apparently against Iranian law, was sentenced to prison, and now he is facing additional espionage charges, which are, of course, bogus.
What's the last contact that you or the family have had with him? Has there been proof of life? Have they gotten any photos or videos of him?
So the family has had intermittent telephonic contact with him, which is great, and we don't want to jeopardize that. But the fact is, it's a very dangerous time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how does the war throw a wrench into all of this with the government in Iran kind of in disarray right now? In that same prison, does the war make things more or less hopeful for you?
Well, it's a very precarious time, without a doubt. The uncertainty of what's happening in and around Evin prison haunts us, not every day, but every hour, quite honestly, because not only is Evin prison a potential military target, it was bombed, in fact, in the 12-day war. There's also risk of reprisals from the guards, from other prisoners themselves. So it is really a very perilous time for these 6 Americans, 2 of which we know for a fact are in Evin prison as we sit here right now.
And only got about 30 seconds left. Has the U.S. government been helpful with your case here?
Fantastically helpful. Just before Operation Epic Fury, President Trump and Secretary Rubio came out and said Tehran will no longer cash in on American hostages. It stops now. Our advice to the Iranian leadership is round up the Americans that you have, drop them off at the Swiss embassy in Tehran, and there is your signal to this president and this administration that there's an off-ramp for these hostilities.
And we certainly hope that Iran decides to take that off ramp. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. We certainly hope for the best for Mr. Hekmati, and thank you for advocating for him. Kieran, thank you so much for your time.
My privilege. Thank you.
Yep.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Instagram now lets you send automated DMs to new followers instantly. Now, most people are going to use
SBA and the role set for it. They're waiting for it. That it'll be serviced much better than it has in the past. It's been a mess. And also, Bobby Kennedy, the Health and Human Services, will be handling special needs and all of the nutrition programs and everything else. Rather complex, but that's going to be headed by and handled by Health and Human Services. So I think that'll work out very well. Those two elements will be taken out of the Department of Education, and then all we have to do is get the students to get guidance from the people that love them and cherish them, including their parents, by the way, who will be totally involved in their education, along with the boards and the governors and the states. And it's going to be a great situation. I guarantee that in a few years from now, I hope I'm going to be around to see it, but I think we're going to see a lot of it. I think that you're going to have tremendous results. You're going to have results like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, a lot of the countries that do so well. I think you're going to have a lot of those results. If you look at Iowa and Indiana and Idaho, so many places that run so well, Florida, Texas, big ones, you're going to have great education, much better than it is now at half the cost. And we're not even doing it as a cost item, although you will save probably half, maybe more than that. And you're not going to be at the bottom of the list. You're going to be much higher. And maybe you'll be, I will guarantee some of the states will be at the top of the list. They'll be comparable.